that. Marquise did not know what was going on with me until I said something. I was still moving and grooving like everything was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to clear that up because it kind of sounded like, well, what was Taylor really doing behind closed doors? Was she talking about this man or was she? No, I was not. It was just my mannerisms were a little bit off. Like, you hear me on the podcast now, I'm all, cussing up a storm. I'm silly and stuff like that. But at that time period, I was just quiet. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. What is love?
Yeah. Yo. Welcome back to the You Stuck With Me podcast. It's your boy, Marquis.
And this is your one and only, your favorite Taylor.
And welcome you guys to this newest episode. Don't mind us. We're just in a very good mood right now.
Yep. And y'all came back like I told y'all to.
Back like cook crack.
Not cook crack.
I ain't got nothing to replace that. It's just a saying, but. So in this episode, y'all, we got a very interesting episode. My wife is going to lead this one because it happened while I was not around. So take it away, babe.
Boom. Check this out. So this is story time.
Mm.
I think this should be a thing. It's Taylor's story time. Or Taylor's tales. Ooh. Okay. But we're getting off topic. All right. So y'all, I am a woman of many talents, right? I have a full-time job and I have side hustles. So one of my side hustles is I'm an Uber driver, right? So I forgot where I was at. It was one of my last pickups, right? And I picked up this young lady from her friend's house. She was just on the phone or whatever like that. Okay. So I try not to listen to people's conversations, but when they loud, you can't help but to hear it. I'm over here jamming to my Maxwell some wah, 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 my little neo soul playlist. But she was just loud. So I hear her talking to her man, talking about something. Yeah, girl. Yeah, boo. I had to leave because so and so and her man was getting into it, and I would have stayed and helped, but I would have been too blue if he put his hands on me. I'm like, what? So later on, as the story progresses, I put two and two together. She was at her best friend's house, and her best friend and her boyfriend were fighting.
Mm.
At first, I thought it was a verbal spat, but no, this was physical.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this right now, and y'all can record me, put it on record, or whatever. I am not in favor of hitting a woman. That's just not how I roll. However, if I'm in a spot where I need to defend myself, let the chips fall where they may.
Well, baby, that's a different story. But anyway, so it sounds like this is not the first time this happened, right? That's number one. Number two, we get to the meat of the story here.
Oh, snap.
So she's still talking to her boyfriend, and she was like, yeah, remember when we got into it? Got into it. So her and her boyfriend have had verbal disagreements. But from what it sounded like, it only happened twice. So the first time, she was like, yeah, the first time I cried. But the second time, I just thugged it out. So it sounded like she fought back. So the first time, she was probably crying out of shock or whatever the case may be, okay? The second time, she was like, oh, we gonna go blow for blow. First of all, I was just so confused here. It was a lot of moving parts to this. The look that you have, yeah, I was looking like that. Like, I just wasn't understanding. But here's the gravy of the story, okay?
So we got the meat first, pause, and then the gravy.
No, we got the appetizer first, the meat, and now the gravy.
Okay.
So they start talking. So she starts explaining, well, part of the reason why we had why you felt like it was okay for you to put your hands on me was because my words hurt you and you didn't know how else to respond to it. I said something that struck a nerve and you thought it was just okay to put your hands on me.
So not to cut you off, but I believe we had a conversation like this, not on the podcast, but just in between us, where a woman's words hurt as bad as a man's fist.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah, so what you're saying about her saying something that struck a nerve with him and that's why he hit it, I believe that. I can believe that.
Right. But we're going to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the dessert, the little topping, the little ice cream with the cherry on top.
Wait, there's more?
Yes. So what made it interesting was, so she was like, I can't wait till you come home so I don't have to buy a new outfit. I guess they was planning on going out or whatever like that, right? Here's the kicker part. She was talking to her man from jail. So I guess they had a birthday party or something like that they had to go to, that she wanted to go to with him. And I guess it lined up when he was being released. So when she said she didn't want to buy a new outfit, I guess they already had matching outfits, so we could just put on a matching outfit. So her buying a new outfit altogether.
That's a story, man.
And what's the crazier part?
Please don't tell me that there's a drink with this too.
No, this is my first ride of the damn day.
That's wild.
So the reason I told that the reason why I brought this story up, because this sparked a conversation between me and Marquis here.
Mm-hmm.
I literally had to call my man and tell him, I appreciate our relationship. I appreciate that we have a foundation of communication, right? That's number one. Excuse me. And number two, I appreciate that we both agree that we want to have, if we have disagreements, as I call them, I don't like to call them arguments because, when we have disagreements, that we intentionally disagree friendly and clean. Like, we don't go out to call each other out our names and stuff like that.
No low blows.
No low blows. Like, you might hear us, you might hear us call each other names for out of jest. But as for like intentionally going for the jugular and everything like that, no.
Like trying to really, really hurt each other?
No.
That's not how we roll.
And so I was telling him this. I was like, this will be a great topic to discuss. So this brings into today's topic. So I wanted to discuss with Marquis today and what y'all, our cousins today, how do y'all feel about the concept of clean, what I call clean conversations. So what I mean by that is, just like how we said before, we don't intentionally try to go for a jugular, like call each other our names, no low blows, or picking up something from the past and try to, throw it in our face.
Yeah, because unfortunately, I've seen and heard it where something was said in private and during an argument, someone brought it up and the other person was, let's just say that they weren't the nicest person to be around and something that they didn't want to come out came out, and you got to pretend like you didn't hear it. Mm-hmm. It's a very uncomfortable situation, which is why when we have disagreements, we keep it in-house in between us, because what's in your marriage or in your relationship, nobody else should know anything as far as something that was done or said in emotional state during a disagreement or argument, depending on how you want to call it in your relationship.
Now, I would say that's easier said than done, because we all have this. If we have close friends where we share stuff with and come to advice to, that's easier said than done. Now, I'm not saying, we saying that, yes, it should be contained in-house. But, I mean, come on now. How many times have for me as a woman, that I went to my best friends and be like, girl, Marquis getting on my nerves today. I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, I understand that because not everything is going to be discussed well between you and I in a relationship, so you would want to go to a separate party, someone preferably who's been married or who's been in the
Yeah,
spot
and
that
that was I
we
was
in.
getting ready to say too. Now I would say we should show discernment of where do we ask for advice. So it's a difference where I go to my single friends for advice of it could be anything. It could be like whatever, right? General stuff. As opposed to I would go to my married friends, be like, hey, this is what's been going on. And you can also do it in a way where you don't have to say it's you. Is you with the problem or whatever like that. You be like, hey, I would just want to run something by you. But then also too, that's when you start to know who. That's when you start to analyze the personalities in your inner circle. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I look at it like this: if it's a marriage situation that you need advice about, go to somebody who's married. Or if it's just a regular personal problem that you deal with, you can go to your single friends. You can go to relatives, anybody that you trust in your inner circle, who is like, or who you can go and say, "Hey, I have this problem. Have you ever dealt with it? And if you have, can you help me?"
Right. Or though go to someone that's not gonna throw it back in your face or whatever like that, right?
Right.
Or be messy. Like they see you with your husband or with your wife, and y'all at a family dinner or whatever like that. They looking at you crazy because you was just talking about, oh, I'm gonna leave. You was gonna leave him, but you still sitting up with this person.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have somebody that has an open mind about it.
You need to also find somebody who's unbiased.
Yeah. And that's why I'm a big advocate for therapy, because if you feel like you have nobody that you can go to like in your inner circle, I'll say seek out therapy, because that's unbiased. They don't know you from a can of paint.
True.
Based on what you tell them. And then even then, they're gonna ask probing questions to like get to the root of stuff, which is one of the reasons why I love therapy. I am a big advocate for therapy.
I'm a big advocate for therapy too because it gives you a way different perspective on a situation that you probably wouldn't have never came up with yourself, or even if you went to somebody in your inner circle, then they probably wouldn't have been able to give you that point of view either. It's basically a professional. It's basically a professional diagnosis of the problem that you're having or problems.
And then also it helps you discover more of yourself. So let's dive a little bit more into therapy. So one of the things, and it was funny because I was just telling this to an old friend that I've known for a while through another friend. I was telling him, I said, I'm not embarrassed to say, before we got married, I told my fiance, look, I'm not in the best mind. I'm in my best mindset right now. It's not you. I don't want you to think it's you. It's all me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that I would be doing a disservice to you by sitting here and continue to plan this wedding, and I'm not 100%.
I agree with that, and
So
I remember that, and I
yeah,
remember.
and I was like, I'm gonna go back to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I said it just like that. I said, and I just told you, I'm just letting you know, as my future husband at the time, I don't want to subject you to whatever the madness I have going on here.
And when you told me that, I said, okay, you know what? I accept that because I rather you deal with whatever's going on now as opposed to after we get married, it becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah, I didn't want to be sitting around. We married, and I'm having mood swings and shit, and
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 I'm
you looking
wondering
like,
why,
and you wondering why.
and wondering if it has anything to do with me.
Right. And usually I don't give myself credit, but I give myself credit for that I took the time to tell you that, because that's hard. That was hard for me to tell you that, like, I need to go to therapy.
And you know what? I think that was part of the communication aspect as it was growing in our relationship because you felt that it. Let me rephrase it. You felt that I gave you the space, the safe space, and the latitude to come to me with something that big and knew that I wasn't going to judge you. Because when you told me that, I said, okay, I'm glad you told me. And not only did you tell me, you took the accountability to go work on the problem. And,
Yeah.
And because you did that, we're in a better space in our marriage as opposed it could have been if you didn't.
Yeah, and I just want to clear up the narrative. I'm not saying that I was going to therapy because I was calling Marquis out his name or anything like that. Marquis did not know what was going on with me until I said something. I was still moving and grooving like everything was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to clear that up because it kind of sounded like, well, what was Taylor really doing behind closed doors? Was she talking about this man or was she? No, I was not. It was just my mannerisms were a little bit off. Like you hear me on the podcast now, I'm all, cussing up a storm. I'm silly and stuff like that. But at that time period, I was just quiet. And a lot of stuff that brought me interest, I wasn't putting 100% like I usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt myself becoming a personality that's not usually me. Because the best way I describe myself is I am the most introvert extrovert ever. When you first meet me, I'm quiet, but when I get used to fill out the situation, you get this right here.
And so how we're connecting this story to the topic is sometimes, and this is a thing that unfortunately is going on in the Black community. A lot of people still don't believe in therapy because they feel like, okay, if I go to therapy, that means I'm crazy. Or if I go to therapy, that means that something's going on, but I don't really want to address it because I don't know how and I don't want to open up old wounds.
Well, to be fair, too, also, and when I was learning about therapy, it was presented in a way like either you was crazy or it was a sign of weakness. And that's one of the things that I did bring up in therapy,
mm-hmm.
right? Like I noticed about myself, I was going in a path where I felt like I could not cry. Like I always had to be strong. And I talked about this in previous episodes too, that I always had to be strong and you don't want them to see you sweat because that's just an open opportunity for somebody to take advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
Which, it happens, but it's not always the case.
Right.
But also to bring it back a little bit, so with the communication part, so that me communicating you with that was a big step. Also, and I was telling one of our good friends this too, when growing up, I was presented with the example of when somebody hurt you verbally, you have to go for the jugular. You got to end that shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always got to go for the jugular. Matter of fact, I think I mentioned this in one of the other interviews that we did.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say we did it with Mike and Joy.
If it wasn't Mike and Joy, it was Darion.
Yeah. Or it could have been both. But anyway, I was saying I was brought up in a space where I saw independent Black women, you gotta get it. You gotta get it by any means necessary sometimes. And you just gotta stand on, as we say, stand on business, but it wasn't called stand on business at the time. It was just, being about your business or whatever the case may be. But coming from growing up, seeing a situation where you gotta be slick at the tongue. You gotta be slick at the tongue and you gotta be ready to fight. And when you came along, you created a space for me to be where it's like it's okay to feel emotions and stuff like that. And that's another reason why I felt like I need to go to therapy too, because I wanted to learn the tools to turn off that switch of I have to, if he says, I'm just waiting for Marquis to say something wrong to me. And if he say the wrong thing, I'm going to have to go after him. And I didn't want to do that because I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And you never want to hurt the people that you love the most. But it's also a double-edged sword because it's always say the ones that's closest to you
are going to be the ones that hurt you the most.
Yeah.
So to bring it back to with the story that you were telling, it sounds like between them, obviously neither one of us was there, but it sounds like it was a really bad breakdown in communication, and because both parties may not have been emotionally intelligent enough to deal with it in a mature manner,
mm-hmm.
This got to swing you.
Yeah, you go back to what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say we think that they grew up seeing, violence and stuff like that. But if swinging is the best way, get a point across, you're going to do what you know.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of my mentors told me this years ago while I was learning a different trade. We are creatures of habit. When we learn something and our backs are against the wall, we go back to what we know at the basis, as you just said. So that's what made me think of. So in that space, and with the story that you just told, we, like I said, we don't know anything based on other than based on what you heard. Maybe that was just the way that they went back to what they knew. It's not healthy in any form or fashion, but like I said, like we both said, we are creatures of habit.
I feel like if you in a relationship where you feel like you have to protect yourself physically, then that relationship needs to be analyzed a little bit.
I don't think it needs to be analyzed. I think it needs to be ended after the first blow. Because there is no reason, no rhyme or reason why a man should hit a woman. Or vice
versa, because let's not forget, there's women out there that beat men.
Yeah, and for some strange reason, it's normalized, and it shouldn't be normalized. And believe it or not, some women have, like, they know how to throw a blow, which people think, for the most part, women don't hit hard. No, there's some women out here who hit hard and know how to aim and everything. I've seen it. I was gonna say,
you see me aim.
I feel like I want to chime in. I'm the producer, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Sorry to cut you off. Sorry to
I
break
know
in
you
like
good,
this, but because basically I had an experience with domestic violence from a woman, and I loved her, but basically she was the sweetest, kindest girl when she was sober, but she would get drunk, and then she would start hitting me, and then it's like it doesn't hurt, right? It hurts emotionally, obviously, to be hit by someone you love, but what I've noticed, and especially in some cultures, if a woman wants to physically injure you, eventually they're going to stop punching you and they're going to hit you with something else. So I just wanted to throw that in because she busted a bottle on me. She's hit me with chairs. She just would hit me with stuff.
And that's what I was talking about before. I was kind of taught that, right? So if I'm just using an example, if somebody came after me, right? Like if a man came after me with his fist, and if I feel like I don't have the upper body strength to knock his ass out, you get whatever, you know, a chair, closest to you. And I say, and now back then I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that. But as I got older and started to understand emotional intelligence, that's very
unhealthy.
That's very unhealthy. Very.
Like you looking for objects in the room.
Right. Like I'm like this is a freaking Royal Rumble or something like that, you know?
Well, good thing
tables, ladders, and chairs.
Good thing I'm a pacifist.
Yeah. But, you know, so my question to you is, how did you navigate that? So
honestly, I just left, but to the point of like never hitting a woman, I do want to say one thing, right? I did end up hitting her once, right? And the situation was this. She basically pulled a knife, cut herself, called the police, blocked the door, and I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of here because she's about to blame. And this is in another country. This is in Thailand.
Oh, wow.
No power whatsoever. If the police show up and she says, I heard her, I did something to her, I cut her, anything. Man, when I tell you, I threw her to the ground so quick.
Man.
And I got out of there. I'm like, nah, it's not. I'm not going to no jail in Thailand. It's not happening.
Wow, that's
ooh.
But yeah, so there was no resolution. I was trying for like literally a year to get her to sober up, but she just had like a lot of trauma and like she had like assault and stuff like that in her history. So she was traumatized, and when she would get drunk, she would just go crazy. Her eyes would get all weird. She'd just go crazy and start like. You know, she'd be like, "Oh, you're cheating on me," and then start trying to beat my ass. I'm like, "Damn, I didn't do nothing." And but yeah, you know, sometimes the only option is to exit. That's why I think when I think one of y'all said like you just gotta like that's like the end of the relationship automatically. I think there's a little caveat. Like I feel like some people have trauma that they don't know how to deal with. So like if they hit you maybe once, twice, 3 times, honestly, it's more so a woman to man. Like if a man is beating you, I wouldn't really be as forgiving with that. But I think if a woman is hitting a man, I think kind of like you were saying, like they might have that sort of upbringing, like, oh, this is the only way I can react in a certain situation. But then that's where the therapy comes in. But if it just goes on for like, I would say a year is way too damn long. But that's just my perspective.
Yeah, and I was getting ready to say too, what Marquise was saying, that sometimes it's easy to say to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if you have that mindset like, oh, he just going through something, and I want to help fix that. Cause we all have had that moment, and if you haven't had that moment, you're probably gonna have a moment. Probably not with a relationship, or probably even a friendship or whatever like that. Like, let me stick around because I want to be a support of that person. Maybe I can help them out of that.
And then, unfortunately, most times you end up being the lonely
Right.
target.
Right. So
Because even though you're trying to stick around and help them, every time they get in this space where they feel like they need to hit you or hit somebody or do something because they haven't dealt with a traumatic situation, you become the punching bag.
yeah. But then also too, I mean, unfortunately, there are men and women who are in these situations. They stay because they feel like, oh, if he hits me or she hits me, that means they love me.
I've heard that. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because there was an episode of A Different World, and Mr. Gaines was talking about either his sister or his cousin, and she was told, unfortunately, that, and this is how the story went. She was told, unfortunately, that if he hits me, that means he loves me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said he kept hitting her, and she felt like it was love, and she was loved to death.
Mm.
So you know where that went.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to say that domestic violence, it needs more people to pay attention to or recognize the signs. If you are in a situation with domestic violence, first, if you don't know what domestic violence is, I implore you to look it up and find out all the information that you can. Second of all, I would say talk to someone that you trust. And third would be talk to someone you trust. Number two would be to get out. And if you want to get out, you need to make sure that you want to get out, because you can't call people and say that you want to get out, and then after a while you keep going back to this person.
Because after a while, your help is gonna get tired of helping you.
Yep.
So, and that was another thing, a point I was gonna bring up too. I mean, sometimes those who are going through that, I don't want to say victim, those who are going through that, after a while, they get sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
They gonna get sick of it, and they gonna want to for real leave.
And as a person who is with, I'm not talking about me, but I'm trying to say, if a person is going through domestic violence, I would say to them, I would say that the only time that they know when to leave is when they hit rock bottom.
Mm.
And unfortunately, sometimes rock bottom means 6 feet under, because some people,
Yeah.
they just go in a rage, and they may not intentionally meant to do it, but they did it. But I would say this to anybody going through domestic violence right now: how many more bloody lips do you have to go through? How many more swollen eyes? How many more bruises? How many times? And even if there are kids involved, how many times do you want your kids to see that and to emulate that? I mean, it's easier said right now because
I'm going to say it's easier said
because I'm on the outside, but you got to sit there and think about that. Just because you got a bloody eye, or I mean, not a bloody eye, a bloody lip or a swollen eye, that's not love. That is far from it, because, and I'm going to quote the Bible, love is never evil. Love is never heartless. That's not love. Mm-hmm. That's unchecked anger, unchecked trauma.
What do you mean misplaced?
No, unchecked.
Mm. Well, I know we've been talking about domestic violence a little bit, but what about some of the other forms, of abuse?
Where there's emotional abuse, there is verbal abuse. Neglect.
Yeah. Well, I never really talked about it with a lot of people. I mean, I've talked about you, but I think this is a open space, a safe space. So I'm a survivor of verbal abuse. One of my previous relationships, I'm not going to say any names or anything like that, but one of my previous relationships, I was verbally abused. At the time, I didn't know it was verbal abuse until as we got older, and I noted, and I realized that what he was saying to me was not okay. Mm-hmm. And it put me in a state of insecurities
Mm-hmm.
and always having worries about my weight or even the case may be. And and that was part of the reason why I always had a guard up, because I'm like, I'm always expecting, my next boyfriend or my next spouse to be like, oh, you're too, I'm just throwing it out there. You're like, oh, if you ever got to this certain way, I would never take care of you. Or, how come you can't look like her? She's feminine, and all this stuff. So it's crazy that we talk about this because it just brought me back to that.
Yeah, I can see it in your face, and as we talk about this,
yeah, I'm trying not to,
Now,
Yeah.
as we talk about this, because I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to be open too. In one of my previous relationships, I was verbally abusive, and I had to check myself before we started dating. I took it out on a person just because I was, one, stressed out, and two, at the time as a young man, I didn't know how to communicate my stresses, and it wasn't right. And as where I'm at now that I know how to verbally communicate and be emotionally transparent, it's I'm not walking around bottling things up, and I'm in a better space, and I think that's what also makes me a better husband, because I know how to communicate and I know how to turn on and turn off what I'm thinking, like, okay, you know what, let me walk away from this because it's not good right now. But I know when to say, okay, I feel this way. And because you, like I do for you, you do for me. You provide me a space where I can be vulnerable and transparent, and we can easily work through miscommunications without much hiccup. So, I mean, it was part of me growing up, and I think once I realized that and I was able to understand it, I became a better person and a better man.
That's powerful. I don't think I ever knew that.
I don't think I ever really talked about it because it never came up in conversation.
Yeah. But I mean, I commend you for, being open with that and everything and sharing that story.
Yeah, because we always say, the Marquis and Taylor now are not the Marquis and Taylor 7 years ago.
Baby, the Taylor that you see now was a work in progress and still a work in progress.
Yeah, we're still working and growing.
We're still working and growing.
So,
but I will say that the Taylor that you see now is a survivor. Those were pretty hard times.
Yeah, and the Marquis that you see today is a lot more calm and chill and knows how to deal with things emotionally.
Yeah. And the Taylor that you see now doesn't have the mindset of always being in survival mode.
Yeah, because you don't have to survive, you're thriving. There's a difference.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all should do an episode on survivor mode.
You know what?
And I know the perfect person we can call in to do that episode with us.
We ain't gonna tell them all the gems. But Steve, you need to get more involved in more episodes like this. I love this.
I be hesitating to talk. I don't want to throw off y'all flow.
Oh no,
chemistry,
Oh no,
no,
you family. We be telling the cousins about you too.
First cousin.
The first cousin. Yep.
So on that note, babe, you want to tell the people where they want to find us or they can find us?
You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram under the official You Stuck With Me Facebook and Instagram page. Babe, you want to tell them the handles?
The handle, so to email us is youstuckwithme@gmail.com. That is USTUCKWITME@gmail.com. On Facebook is You Stuck With Me. On Instagram is You Stuck With Me _podcast, USTUCKWITME _podcast. You can find my personal handle on Instagram and the app formerly known as Twitter, mine _1, that is M1NE _1.
And you can find me on Instagram and the app formerly known as formerly known as Twitter. I got a little tongue-tied there. Under Queen Points. That is PO1NTZ. Again, that is Queen Points, PO1NTZ. And if you want some more behind-the-scenes action, or, you know, because we had a whole dope karaoke practice.
We definitely did.
We definitely did. If you want to see what those are like, you could follow us on TikTok before the government shut us down. That is under Queen Points 22. Again, that is Queen Points 22.
And if you want to check us out, check out our podcast, you can go to Spotify and you can go to YouTube. Thank you for blowing up the YouTube page.
Thank you for blowing up the YouTube and the Apple and the Spotify. We appreciate the love and support. Like, real talk.
And if you're on Apple, make sure that you rate, subscribe, share, tell your mom, tell everybody, because I think that this is probably one of the most profound episodes that we've had that is really where we became real vulnerable.
You got me telling deep, dark secrets and ish buzz because we love y'all.
You know, sitting here thinking about it, I think it was a good thing I told my part of the story because men need to know.
And to clear this up, Marquis was not the one that was verbally abusing me.
Oh, no.
Because you just said you used to be a verbal abuser. So it was not him.
No.
But anyway, this is your one and only and your favorite Taylor.
And this is your boy Marquis.
And, hey, come back.
Y'all stuck with us.
You stuck. You stuck with us.
Peace out, y'all.
Later.